You with us?
Hello. Yes, this is Jennifer. This is my second time.
Oh, cool. Can I give you a pop quiz too? What do you remember from the first session, if anything?
Um, you had 3 points. For I think your own narrative, and I think it was like one of them was about what your experience was that changed your worldview.
Yeah, good memory, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Uh, is it Kyla? Kayla? Kyla?
Kayla.
Kayla, hey.
Hey.
Are you here for the first time or second time for this session?
First time.
First time. All right. Well, stay with us. I'm going to do another round robin here, all right? Oh, and we've got Isabel. Isabel?
Yes.
Hey, hey.
Yeah.
Hey, is this your first time or your second time? Oh, we've got Gabriel too. First time?
Yes.
All right. Hey, Gabriel.
Hello?
Hey there. Is this your first time or your second time here with us tonight?
Second time.
Second time. All right. We're going to do a pop quiz for the people who showed up last time. So we're going to put you on the spot. Do you remember anything from the first session? And if so, what was it?
I remember you talking about how all the stuff you went through in college at Harvard, how you were asking how could I be better prepared?
Yeah, it's a good memory. We're going to come back to you, Gabriel. So don't leave us just yet. We're going to go around one more time, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit more time to think about this one, and I'm going to go into a little bit of an introduction, and then I'm going to bring it back to you all right? So the question that I have for you all tonight is I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and I want each person to share a little bit. The first question is, in your application process for college, where are you right now? You can be, you may have not started. You could have just come up with maybe your essay topic. You could have maybe drafted already, or you could be all finished and crushing it. I want you to tell me where you are in the process. That's question number 1. And then question number 2 is I want you to tell me what is one thing you want me to talk about today that will make this hour together worthwhile for you. All right. I don't want to waste your time. I know you all have busy lives and better things to do with your lives. So come up with one thing that you want me to cover, and I will make sure I talk about it tonight. All right. So for those of you who didn't get a chance to attend the first session, I'm going to quickly introduce myself while you guys think about your answers to those 2 questions. My name is Gorik Ng. I am a first-generation low-income college student. I am the son of a sewing machine factory worker who dropped out of school at the age of 12 to support her brothers. My single mother ended up raising me in Toronto, Canada. And I was lucky enough to have gotten into Harvard University for my undergrad. And I'm here to tell you that if you aim high and you work hard, and I know all of you guys work hard, that you can do it too. And it's all about following what I call the unspoken rules, which is to say that when you go online, you go on Google and you go on all these college websites and Common App prompts, they're going to tell you to fill in some forms, write some essays. But there's what they look for and what they say they look for and what they're really looking for. And that's what I call the unspoken rules. These are the things that the college admissions officers are expecting you to write about, but that aren't going to tell you. And these are the things that college coaches, I went online, and if you come from a better well-off background than the one that I came from, you can pay thousands of dollars an hour for someone to teach you some of these unspoken rules. But given that I didn't have that money growing up, and I didn't have anyone to teach me those things except for a fellow student from another high school that I was lucky to have met, I want to spend my career trying to demystify some of those unspoken rules. And I'm trying to do that for the workplace when you enter your first job. And here tonight, I'm going to talk about what those unspoken rules are when you're writing your college application. So that's a little bit about me. I started from the bottom, and I now really want to pay it forward. And that's what I'm here to do. Outside of the session here, I currently work at Harvard. I'm actually a career advisor for Harvard College undergrads. I help them with their resumes, their cover letters, their grad school applications, and to help them figure out what to do with their lives. This is a big passion of mine as well, because my mom wasn't able to help me with those kind of questions. I really had to sort it out through trial and error. And so if there's a little bit I could do to help make it easier for someone else, that's going to make me feel like I've contributed something positive to the world. And so that's what I'm here to do with you all, is to help you guys achieve your personal goals. So that's a little bit about me. Let's now jump into the questions, and I'll go back to do a little summary of what I covered last time for the people who didn't get a chance to attend. All right, so I'm going to go around the room here. I'm going to cold call you all. 2 questions. Question 1 is, where are you in the application process with your essays? And number 2 is, what is one thing you want me to cover tonight that's going to make this a good use of your time? All right. So Jemiah, do you want to start us off?
Yes. Okay, I haven't had like any colleges with essays yet, so I'm not on the essay part yet. But what I want you to cover for tonight is do all colleges need FAFSA or your ACT scores to get accepted into college?
Did you say FAFSA and ACT score, or because those are 2 different things?
Right, I just realized. Do they need your ACT or SAT scores to get into any college?
Okay, cool. I'm going to write that down, and I'm going to answer it right after this, all right? Actually, you know what? Why don't we do this? We're going to do an activity that I call popcorn. You may have heard of this before, but the person who answers gets to call on the next person, and then that person calls on the next person, all right? So Jemiah, do you want to call on the next person?
Yes.
Go for it.
Sasha.
That was an evil laugh there.
I knew she was gonna say. I knew she was gonna say my name. Where am I at with my application process? I'm finished with all my Texas schools, and I'm satisfied. I'm just waiting for the rest of my, my application letters, because I already got accepted to 2.
Ooh.
And something I want you to cover today is an effective way to balance work, work and college work.
Oh, like a part-time job, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good question, and we're going to cover that for sure. All right,
Okay.
Sasha, next person.
I would like to pick Juliet Kalala.
Okay, can y'all hear me perfectly fine? I know my background is kind of loud.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, I just started the application process, so yeah. And then for what I want to learn, let me see. I want to learn how to write an effective essay.
All right. Thank you, Juliet. You want to pop it over to someone else?
Okay, let me see. Jennifer.
Okay. My college process. I've applied to schools in Texas, and I haven't really done out of state yet. And
for the introduction, I said introduction. What I want you to talk about is like how you could have a more effective introduction for college essays for it to be more unique instead of it being like more common that everybody uses.
Yeah, that's a good question. Can I ask you a clarifying question, Jennifer?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what do you mean by the more common intros? What's a common intro? What's an example?
Like I've been following social media accounts that have like advice on how to do like the college classes, and from what I know that they started off by saying like how everybody starts about like their own personal what they've been through like as a kid and like how that affected them. Like I don't know how to do that with the introduction. I don't think my own story is like unique.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, that's a big concern that I had as well when I was in your position. So we'll definitely talk about that. You want to pop it over to someone else, Jennifer?
Yeah, I would like to Gabriel.
Was that to Gabriel, Jennifer?
Yes.
Hello?
Hey, hey.
All right, so I haven't really applied to any colleges yet. So, and I'm not really sure how to do it.
You want to share a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Well, mm, hmm. Like I know there's a lot of things that you have to do to apply to colleges, but I have like I'm unsure of how, I guess.
Do you have a list of schools there already decided, Gabriel?
I have a couple. I have 5, 4 or 5.
That's a good first step. Have you been on the application websites?
I just know that it's on Apply Texas. I was messing around with it and I think I was doing it right.
Cool, cool. All right. Well, I'll talk about the general process before we dive into the details. So it's a good question, Gabriel. I'm glad you brought it up.
Gabriel, me and you after class, after the session,
Yes.
we got some things to talk about, sir. So
Okay.
I'll see you. Me and Mr.
Fighting words.
Not fighting words. We'll see
Awesome.
you. Awesome. I'll hand it back.
Great. Thank you. Hey, Gabriel, do you want to pop it over to someone else?
Marjorie?
So I have most of my college applications are done, but I'm like up until the essay point, meaning I just have to submit essays to submit applications. That's where I'm at. I don't really have any like specific things. I just kind of want to see where this goes because I just want to know what do you recommend basically when we're writing our essays. Basically how we were last time. Really hope. So I don't really have a question specifically.
Cool. Sounds good. Marjorie, you want to pop it to someone else? I think we're almost there.
Isabel.
Isabel.
She is at work, but she needs help writing her essay. She has applied to TWU, Texas State, Baylor, waiting on in commerce, AM commerce, waiting for the counselor to sign her transcripts or basically get an official transcript. But yeah, well, the big thing that she needs help is writing her essay. So I'm reading what she sent to me. So it's
Mr.
Awesome.
Contreras,
what?
I talked to the UNT Dallas track coach.
Okay, full ride. Don't talk to them unless they give you a full
I
ride.
talked to him.
Okay, what discuss about it, Jemiah? Okay,
Okay.
that was Isabel. I think that's everybody.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
It wasn't everybody.
Oh no, Kyla.
I hand it over to Ms. Reed. And then
Okay.
Crystal's the last one, right? Yeah, see? Okay, thank you for catching me, Ms. Reed. Don't hurt me.
I won't. I've applied to about 5 schools, 2 acceptances. I think somebody already asked the question that I wanted to, because I've been working for a few months now, and it's getting kind of tough balancing all my homework and, going to work and everything. But I'm doing it. I'm successful so far. Just tips on that, and then the essays as well.
Awesome. Sounds like you're crushing it. All right. Do we have Crystal? Last but not least.
Yeah. Hello. Hi. I
Hey.
have not got started at all. I'm not sure what I'm actually looking for in a college. I'm getting a lot of emails from colleges, but I'm not quite sure what's actually going on there. So,
Cool.
I don't understand.
You gotta chat with Miss Martinez.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, we got a thumbs up. Cool. Okie doke. Well, thanks everyone for sharing with me. I'm gonna go. I was taking notes. All right, so I'm serious about trying to answer your questions. I've got them all here, and we're gonna go through this one at a time from the beginning to the end. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about what I shared last time, just for those of you who weren't able to attend. One thing that I want to say is if any of you have questions, or if I'm unclear, or if I'm rambling and it's making no sense, I want you to unmute and I want you to say, Gorik, I have a question. All right. So I want you to interrupt me as often as you want. And the first person to do that is going to get a big high five from me, a digital high five from me. All right. So I want you to be speaking up. All right. So college applications. Some of you know this. Some of you are just getting started. That's okay. But the college application is all about, number one, make a list of schools that you want to apply to. Number two, go on those websites and figure out what the deadlines are. Number three, write down all of the requirements, the reference letters, the standardized test scores, the essays, the supplementary applications, the FAFSAs. The fourth step is for the recommendation letters to talk to your teachers and to make sure that they're aware of what schools you're applying to and what you're going to need from them and what the deadlines are. Step 5 is you sit down and you write your essay. And I'll talk a little bit about what that process entails. Step 6 is you click submit. Step 7 is you keep applying. So I was actually, one of those unspoken rules that I learned at Harvard is, this is going to sound a little bad, but beggars can't be choosers. You heard that before? So I wasn't smart enough to do the whole pre-med thing to, become a doctor. But one of the things that I was really surprised about when I got to Harvard was you had kids who had 4.0 GPAs, who were taking really hard classes, and who, when I asked them, hey, you're going to be a shoo-in for any medical school you want to get into. You're probably just applying to your top school, right? And they're like, oh no, I'm applying to like 30 schools. And I'm like, what? 30 schools? And so they were like, I really want this. And you can't really count on one school being willing to say yes. And even if you get into the school that you want, you can't guarantee that they're going to give you the financial aid you want. And so the more schools you apply to and the more schools that give you financial aid, the more you can say to school A, hey, I really want to go to your school. You're my top school. I actually got a better financial aid offer from school B. Can we talk about this? And so that's one of the unspoken rules of this whole process, is it's all about something that people in the business world called leverage. Leverage is a fancy way of saying power. Who has the power? So if, we're going out for dinner and I'm paying, I have the power, right? Because I have the power to say, we're going to go to this restaurant instead of that restaurant. Because I have the power to say, you know what? Actually, I'm not going to pay for dinner anymore. You guys pay for dinner. And so you can apply that to the financial aid process and the application process in general, because if you can get into a really good school and then get into another school that the first school sees as a competition, well, if the other school gives you a better offer, you now can go to the first school and say, hey, your competitor is giving me more money. I want more money too. And you can't do that if you're in beggar mode instead of chooser mode, right? So think about beggars can't be choosers. So even though I'm sure all of you guys are crushing it with school and are really smart, I can tell just from, the conversation that we've had so far, but don't be complacent, right? I know a lot of people who are at Harvard who are still applying to, school after school after school because they want to get the best offer. And I want all of you not to just go to college. I have no doubt you'll all be successful when you get into college. I want you to get into the best college at the cheapest price possible, right? Why pay more money than you need to? Why not get into a better school than the one that you could have gotten into, okay? So aim high, aim high, aim high. So I hope that covers the question of applying to schools. And I think that came from Gabriel and Crystal. Gabriel, Crystal, did I cover that? I know that you're going to be talking to Miss Martinez, who's going to walk you through this in more detail, but did you have any other questions on that question before I move on?
No. Or about how many essays would colleges ask for?
Ooh, that's a good question. So each school is going to have a different number of essays, and they're going to ask for something slightly different. And if you apply with, let's say, the Common App, you're going to be able to use one essay and you're going to be able to send it to a whole bunch of other schools. But each school might have a bunch of supplementary essays. So if I apply to school A, I might be able to send that school one essay that I sent to every other school, but that school might still ask me to answer some more questions. So the way I think about the essay process is let's say you have 20 schools on your list, right? Or 10 schools on your list, or however many schools you have. First, look at each of their websites, right? I think that was step 2. Look at their websites. Actually, step 3, after looking at the deadlines, is to see what they're asking for, right? And so what I personally like to do is I'll open up a browser tab for each school. I will then take a Word document and I will go into that school's website and I will copy and paste everything that they need. So I have a list of everything that I will ever need to write. And then I can start seeing what the patterns are, right? So if every school is asking for the Common App and they don't ask for any supplementary materials, great. One essay, you're done. If they ask for supplementary, then you're going to have to write one and you're going to have to write others to go along with it. I just got a message from Crystal. I'm going to read it out. Crystal, do you want to actually say it out loud for the entire group in case people can't read your message here?
Excuse me.
Yes.
My phone's about to die, so if I just like leave, that's because my phone's dead.
Thanks for letting me know, Juliet. I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, no problem, Crystal. All right, I'm going to read the question to everyone, which is, would you have to continue to make more essays? And how would a person stay motivated to finish the essay without feeling like they're pressured? That's a good question. So I think there are two questions there, all right? It seems like the first question is, do you have to continue writing more essays? And for this, what I like to do is I like to first find the one essay topic that I can send to as many schools as possible. Because I'm kind of lazy, right? Like, I don't want to be like, I don't know about you guys. Like, I wasn't really into writing essays. Like, that's not my, English class was not my favorite class. What's that, Sasha?
Can I put in? So you basically saying we can reuse the same essays, right?
Oh, totally.
If it's like, if they have similar topics.
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Oh, that's a really good question, Sasha, because it just occurred to me that in school, right? Like your teachers expect you to do new work for their class, right? Your teachers don't want you to be, doing one assignment and submitting it to every class, because that's, they want you to do new work. But in the college application process, that's not true. So it's a really good question, Sasha. And I'm really, really glad you brought it up, because if you just write one essay, you can send it everywhere. No one's going to talk to each other and say, unless they say it, of course. Some schools, I actually haven't personally seen schools that say you have to write a new essay for us. I would venture to guess like 99% of schools out there will say, we want an essay. And they won't, the admissions officer on the other side isn't going to have, the time or the energy to like call up every school and say, hey, did Sasha write the same essay for you guys? So yeah, back to the point about me being lazy. I'm super lazy about this. Don't make it harder on yourselves. Write one essay, make it the essay that every school is looking for, and you're done. Just write one. Does that answer your question, Sasha?
Yes, it does.
All right. I think we can be lazy people in crime, but I think it's smart lazy, not overworking yourself.
It's called working smarter, not harder.
I like that. I like that, Sasha. All right. So
I told Sasha that.
Was that right?
You did not. She's lying.
I told Sasha that.
We learned that from a teacher.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like history. It's like writing essays for school, right? You got to have your footnote and you got to cite your sources. I'm going to cite. We'll cite it back to Jemiah there on that quote. All right. So, any questions on the general process before we go on? Otherwise, I'm going to go into the essay and I'm going to recap a little bit what we talked about last time. I'm going to count from 5, 4.
Okay, so since
go for it.
Since some schools don't ask for essays and then some do, like the ones that don't ask for essays, like how would you like further push them to look more into me? You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, that's a. Say that again, Sasha.
That's my brother.
Oh.
So you know how like some schools require essays and some don't. Like with the essays, they want to know more about you to see if they would like to have you a part of that institution. Like for the colleges that don't require essays, like how would you further make them? How would you make them more interested in you without an essay?
Yeah, so I would think about it as there are 3 categories of schools. There are those that have mandatory essays, in which case, suck it up, you got to do it. The second category are the ones that have optional essays. So they say you can submit one, you don't have to submit one if you don't want to. And then the third category are the ones where you don't need an essay at all. And I'll talk about each of the 3 in 1 second. But the way I think about the college application process is I think about it as a bunch of cutoffs and a bunch of sliding scales. Like you can, slide something from one end to another, like a ruler. Now let's think about all the variables in a college application, right? All of the little things that you will submit to the application reviewer. You're going to have your grades. You're going to have your ACT or your SAT scores if they require it. You're going to have your teacher recommendation letters if they require it. And you're going to have your essays if they require it, right? So 4 big pieces. Now, some of these have a cutoff, right? Like, there's weighted, unweighted GPAs and all that kind of stuff, sure. But there's pretty much a maximum, right? Like you can get a 4.0 GPA and, that's pretty much it. Like you're certified, really, really smart. Similarly with the SAT, right? You can get a certain score. If you get perfect score, great. You're certified, a genius. But you can't go above that, right? And every school is going to have an average of what GPA they're looking for, as well as what standardized test scores they're looking for. So if the school says we look at the ACT, or we have GPAs and the average GPA is a 3.5, then you have a pretty good sense of, okay, I've got a 3.2 versus I have a 3.8, right? Now, if you're a 3.8, you can say, yeah, I'm pretty safe, right? Compared to the average applicant. But if I have a 3.2, I'm going to have to show how cool and intelligent and interesting I am beyond my scores. And so when I think about the sliding scales, I think about your recommendation letters, right? I think about your essays, and there's no limit to how interesting you can be, right? Like you can be infinitely interesting. There's no, 4.0 on interestingness, right? Or what your teachers say about you in your recommendation letters. There's no limit to how amazing your teachers can, rave about you. And so when I think about those 3 categories of schools, right? In an ideal world, you're going to be at the very, very top of your cutoffs. So if a school wants a 3.0, you've got a 4.0. Like that's amazing, right? You're well exceeding the cutoffs and you're being as interesting as you possibly can, in which case you've got both. And so let's go into each of the 3 categories of schools, right? Let's go in reverse order. So for the schools that don't take essays at all, well, there's no opportunity for you to show those sliding scales, right? There's no opportunity for you to show how interesting you are. And if that's the case, well, I guess those are the rules. There's really not much you can do about it. But once we get into the second category and the first category, that's where things get a little bit more interesting, right? Because the schools that have optional essays, well, yeah, it's optional. They're saying it's optional. That's the written rule. But what's the unwritten rule? Well, the unwritten rule is if you don't submit an essay, we won't know how interesting you are. And if we don't know how interesting you are, we're going to have to rely on only your grades and your standardized test scores. And if they're really, really, really good and well above our cutoff, then we'll take you. But if we're not sure and it's really competitive this year and there are a lot of other students who have really good grades as well, it's going to be really hard, right? Because imagine you have a big pile of applications and you have one spot that you're choosing between and you have 5 people. Person 1 has 3.4, second person has 3.45, person 3 has 3.41, person 4 has 3.35, right? They're all within that little range. How do you separate between a 3.41 and a 3.42? Are you going to take the 3.42 person over the 3.41 person? Maybe. I don't know. And how would you even know where you stack up compared to the competition, right? You really don't know because you don't know who else is applying and what their scores are going to be. And so the way I think about the essay optional schools is, yeah, it's optional, but that's the written rule. The unwritten rule is you should submit an essay because you want to give the school as much of a reason to take you seriously as possible. Now, for the schools that require both an essay and your scores, that's easy, right? Like you need to do the two, otherwise you're not following the rules and you won't get in. So that's how I think about it. Did that address your question there? Do you have other questions?
Yes, it answered my question.
Ooh, all right. Did you say it answered your question, or you have more questions?
It answered my question, but I will have more questions.
All right. Should I keep going, or do you want to ask it now?
You can keep going.
All right, cool. So let me go into something that Jemiah said earlier about FAFSA and ACT. I think that's a really good question that relates to what I just talked about. So not all schools are going to require standardized tests. So you think about it as those three categories again, right? You have schools that don't require or even will consider your standardized test scores. That's one category. The second are the ones where it's optional. If you want to submit it, go ahead. And then the third category are the ones that are going to require it, right? And we can apply that same mindset. Cutoffs versus sliding scales, right? So if you think about this as a bunch of data, right, on who you are, because these schools aren't going to know who you are and what you're all about and how amazing of a person you are. All they can see is what you present to them. So in the schools that, so in the case of the ACT, I would say for the schools that require it, yeah, you got to take it. For the schools that don't take it, don't bother. But the schools in the middle, that's where things get interesting, right? So then you got to investigate a little bit more, go on Google and figure out what is the cutoff, right? And so if they ask for an ACT and their average tends to be, let's say, a 30, well, now you got to ask yourself, what score do I have? Do I have a score that's well above 30 or well below 30? If it's well below 30, maybe we can talk a little bit more. You can ask Ms. Martinez about what it, does it make sense? But if it's well above, that's another data point to say, hey, I'm awesome. You should take me. So why not show off, right? This is all kind of like a beauty pageant in a way. If you're going to have, really good scores, absolutely take it. But because the ACT and stuff, because they're on a schedule and you need to take the tests and, the tests take time and you need to study for it, I would go back to step number one, make that list of schools, go on those websites, see what they require, and then try and figure out whether it's worth your time. And then for the FAFSA, I want to address that really quickly where I'll broaden this to financial aid, right? So there are some schools that are called need blind schools. And then there's some schools that are called need aware schools. And that's based on financial aid. So if your family makes under a certain amount of money every year, you will qualify for financial aid from some schools. And for the need blind schools, they won't hold that against you. So let me make this a little more concrete by talking about my own circumstances. So my single mother, worked odd jobs. She wasn't making a lot of money. So I knew, and a lot of the top schools that I applied to, their cutoff for full financial aid was, I think, $60,000 or $70,000 a year, which means if your family makes under $60,000 or $70,000 a year, if you get into Harvard, you get to go for free. So by the way, guys, it's a freebie. So, ask Ms. Martinez, what does your profile look like? Because if you can get into those schools, it's a freebie. You should apply. I would encourage you to apply because you never know. You could end up being like me. So in my case, right, my family made under $60,000 a year. I applied for financial aid and I selected in the application that if I get accepted, I'm going to ask for financial aid. And at need blind schools like Harvard, they're going to not consider that in my application, which means which means that I will have just as good a chance of getting in as someone who's able to pay full price. Now, that's not the case at need-aware schools. Need-aware schools might say, ooh, you need financial aid. We're going to make it a little bit harder for you to get in because we don't know if we have all the money in the world to give everyone all this money. So guys, one quick tip that I talked about last time is when you go on Google, do me a favor, go on Google and search for need blind colleges. Because every one of those schools you can apply to, and if you get in, you get to go for free if you make under the minimum amount of money that they expect your parents to make. So it's a freebie. In my case, I would have paid more staying in state and staying at home than if I had gone to Harvard. I paid nothing to go to Harvard. Jemiah, did that answer your question? Did you have other questions?
No, that answered my question. I don't have any questions right now.
All right, cool. So next, I want to jump into the essay now. And I think for a bunch of you who weren't here last time, I'm going to really quickly zoom through what I talked about. So it's also the theme of this talk, which is something that is called the hero's journey. Now, think back to the last novel you read, the last movie you watched, the last TV show. You're going to have, every story is focused on a character, right? So let's say Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter is the main story of Harry Potter. And Harry Potter is all about the journey of Harry Potter and his journey becoming a wizard, training at Hogwarts, and then eventually defeating Voldemort. Or Spider-Man, I think someone brought that up last time. Spider-Man is someone who was bit by a spider, ended up having these superpowers, and is on a journey to save his city from all of these evil villains. And now think back to any story you can think of, and you're going to have a main character, and that main character is going to be on a journey. And that main character is the hero. So that's what it's called, the hero's journey. Now, the hero's journey comes with three main parts. Every story, as you may have heard from your teachers, has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? Now, the hero's journey has it in a specific way. So the beginning always starts off often with someone just living their everyday life. Happy-go-lucky. So Peter Parker, Spider-Man, was just a normal person until he got bitten by a spider. Harry Potter was living under the staircase, was just an average, kid until he got invited to Hogwarts. And you can think about that beginning as a spark, just like you spark a fire, right? So the idea behind writing an essay is your beginning. And I know that earlier Jennifer asked the question, I think, of how do you write an effective intro? And you've heard from other people who've said that they start off with a personal story. Well, that's exactly what it's all about, where you want to find a spark, an aha moment that led you to start that journey. That's the beginning. The middle is, all right, now that you've gone on this journey, what have you done as part of that journey that leads to the movie being interesting, that leads to the TV show being interesting, that leads to the book being a book that you actually want to turn the next page on? And for a lot of these superheroes or whichever character you want to talk about, these characters are going to have, bad guys to fight, right? People to save from, falling off a building, right? Monsters to slay. That's their middle, right? And that's what makes the story interesting. And then the end always has a conclusion, right? It always has some sort of a broader purpose. And so when we apply this to you all, the mindset that I want you to think about is of you being your own hero. Now, that's easier said than done, so I'm going to turn this back on me for a little sec. and I'm going to talk a bit about my own essay. All right. So when I applied to Harvard and all of these schools, I wrote one essay, and it was for the Common App. So again, coming back to, I think, what we're talking about with Sasha, be lazy. I was really lazy. I put all my time on this one essay, and then I wrote it and I sent it off to everyone. What did that essay talk about? I'll talk about the beginning, the middle, and the end. All right. So the beginning, I talk about how I was standing at a bus stop and I was holding onto a tin can and I was shaking it, and there was money inside. And I was yelling, "Hungry kids can't learn." And I was shaking it at the bus stop, and I was stopping all of these people from, I was trying to attract attention to everyone who's going on their morning commute. And then someone walked up to me and they said, "Hey, are you Gorick? Are you the person who was on the radio this morning?" And I said, "Yeah, that was me." And he said, "Good job." And he patted me on the back. He put some money into the can and he walked onto the bus. And at that point I thought, wow, that was me. And it wasn't just any interview. I was actually on the radio station in my hometown where I was talking about the fundraising campaign that we were leading. And as I was looking at the can and the money that the person had put into the can, I started flashing back to just how far I had gone to get to where I was. And so I flashed back to a point in time when I was in the free lunch line in my high school, where because I was a low-income kid, I had free lunch offered to me at school. And I talked about how that lunch helped me get through school. But it was a humiliating experience because the way the lunch line worked was if you got free lunch, you had to tell the person at the lunch line that, "Hey, I'm on your free lunch list." And whereas everyone else could, pay with cash or with their credit card, I had to point out that, I was poor. And it was humiliating. But over the course of that process, I learned that I was getting this free lunch because of the generosity of other people. And it was these people who donated money to the local school district to fund this program, to provide me with lunch, that ultimately led to me being able to focus in class. And after learning that, I wanted to pay it forward. I wanted to give back because I had benefited so much from these programs. I wanted to make sure that these programs were available to the next kid after me. So what I ended up doing was I decided to join the foundation, the nonprofit that funded these lunches, and I ended up fundraising for them. And that fundraiser ended up getting me onto the radio station. We ended up actually lobbying the school district to expand these programs to more schools. And as I think about what I want to do in the future, I want to make sure that other kids who are coming from low-income backgrounds could succeed as well, not because of their circumstances, but because they were hardworking and ambitious. So that was my story. You see, I was, I can't call myself a hero, but for the purposes of this framework, I was the hero of this journey, right? I had the spark, which was feeling humiliated in the lunch line. I had a spark at the beginning of the essay where I talked about someone recognizing me from the radio. And then I talked about what I was doing to help pay it forward. I was joining this nonprofit. I was fundraising for them. And then I was talking about the future, which is to say, this experience had changed my worldview. It changed the way that I looked at the world, where now I wanted to do this maybe for the rest of my life. So that's my hero's journey. And I think someone earlier mentioned that they didn't feel like they had very much to say. And well, I didn't feel like I had very much to say either, but we all have a story. Anytime you felt stressed, you felt worried, you felt like an outsider, you were in a time of trouble and stress, well, that is probably a sign that you've got a really good story. And we've all felt those emotions before, right? We've all felt sad. We've all felt frustrated. We've all felt worried. And in the moment, we might think, oh man, this is a really hard experience, but for the purposes of your application, that can be a really powerful start. So we don't have much time here. So I'm going to wrap things up by talking about how to write this essay. And then I'll quickly talk about balancing school, because I think that's the last question, and then we'll wrap things up. So in terms of how to write the essay, right? There are two frameworks that you can think about. One framework is what I just talked about: beginning, middle, end. Find a spark, find the journey, find the mission. 3 sections to your essay, write it out, you're done. That's the first option. The second option is a sandwich, which is kind of what I did, where you start off with a scene like me standing at the bus stop, and then that experience triggers a flashback. So in my case, I flashed back to when I was standing in the lunch line, and then I flashed forward again at the very end, where I started thinking, ooh, now I'm standing at the bus stop. What other bus stop could I stand at? What other kids could I help? What other money could I raise? So present, past, present, future. Sandwich, write it out, you're done. Any questions on that? I know I went through that really quickly all of a sudden, but that's kind of 2 quick, easy frameworks to use for your essays. Any questions?
I don't have any.
All right, thank you, Jemiah. Anyone else? Okie doke. So I'm gonna whiz through the last section. And the last section here is all about what Sasha asked about and what Kyla asked about, which was how to balance school and work, which is a really important skill, which is time management. So I think about this in 2 ways. And if you want to talk about the time management stuff, we can spend the next session. We have one more session together. We can talk about it more. There are 2 ways that I'll give you a sneak peek now. The first way is think about, I'm going to write this out for you all. Take out my notebook. And I'm going to draw a square. And I'm going to draw this in the middle. All right. And I'm going to put you're going to have to read my chicken scratch here. But here we have a square and we have 4 quadrants. All right. This stands for important. This stands for not important. This stands for urgent. This stands for not urgent. So the key idea here is there's a difference between what is urgent and what is important. So let me give you an example, right? What is urgent? Well, if your sibling needs to be picked up right now, that's really urgent. In the grand scheme of things, is that important? Yeah, it's important. You can't ditch your sibling. But in the context of college applications, like there are probably more important things you need to be doing right now than picking your sibling up from school or from childcare or from whatever. And the one thing that gets people really stressed, and that gets me really stressed as well, is we all have so many urgent things that we have to tend to that we don't end up having time to spend on the important things. And so what I would encourage you all to do is think about long-term, right? A year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what's really important? Well, right now, given that we're in November and college application season is in full swing, what's probably most important right now is getting those essays done, getting those recommendation letters, getting those standardized tests. That's the most important. That's what you're going to be looking back in 5 years' time and thinking to myself, man, I should have spent more time on that. That's what makes something important. Now, there are a lot of things that are going to be not important but urgent, And you're going to have to, excuse my French here, but you're going to half-ass it a little bit, right? Like we all can't be 100% on everything. You're going to have to be more efficient with the things that are urgent, but that are not as important and that don't need you to be a perfectionist about. And then there are going to be things that are really important, but that are not urgent. You can maybe leave that for later. You can schedule it for the weekend. And then there are going to be things that are urgent and not important. Not urgent and not important. Well, get rid of that because that's not worth your time. And so think about what activities in your daily life are important and urgent, and really try and focus on those. That's the first framework that I'll share with you. The last one before we wrap up here is to think about where you can double dip. And I think we were talking about this with Sasha just earlier about, are there ways for you to double dip where you can accomplish more than one goal at the same time? So I heard a few of you guys talking about jobs. Now, making money is really important. Pays for school, helps you support your family, helps you have some pocket money. That's all really important stuff. Now, but not every job is made equal. So you might be working at a coffee shop. You might be working as a waitress or a waiter. You might be working as a line cook. You might be working in retail as a sales associate. These are all really important experiences, but something that I would encourage you to think about, and we can think about this maybe for next time as well, is thinking about, what are the goals that I'm aspiring to? If you want to be, the head of a restaurant, working at a restaurant makes a lot of sense. If you want to work as a store manager in the future and you want to maybe work at the very top of H&M, maybe working your way up this chain of command makes a lot of sense. But if you told me, for example, that you want to work as a nurse, or you want to become an accountant, or you want to become a lawyer, or you want to become a vet, well, those experiences are all going to require a different set of experiences. And so the question that I would ask myself is, where do I want to be long-term? And is there something that I can do right now in a part-time job that can get me closer to that goal so that I'm not only making money, but I'm also padding my resume at the same time, so that in the future, if I apply to nursing school, I can say, hey, I worked in a community center. I was working with the elderly. I'm really comfortable working with patients. And now all of a sudden you have a really great essay topic and you have really great answers that you can share with people in your interviews in a way that working at Starbucks may not be able to get you. Now, it's easier said than done. Not every, it's hard to get a job, but I would be thinking about, how can I use every moment of my time in as many different ways as possible? I threw a lot of you here tonight, guys. Any questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap up, and I'll see you next time.
I don't have any.
Thank you, Jemiah. Thank you, Gabriel.
What is worth bragging?
Sorry, Crystal?
Yeah, you mentioned before that it was good. It was like kind of okay if we brag, but I was thinking, what is worth bragging? Like during academics and stuff.
Ooh, do you mean for essays or for interviews, or in what situation?
For essays.
Yeah, for essays. So, so I think about every essay as, think about every piece of your application as answering a different question about who you are. All right. So your SAT scores, ACT scores, your GPA, what is that answering? That's answering the question of how smart are you, or how academically successful are you, right? Your recommendation letters are answering the question of how good of a person are you? How, what do others say about you that you can't say about yourself? Now, if you have to attach, let's say, a form that says what extracurricular activities and things like that you've done outside of school, those fields answer the question, what have you done? Which now leaves the very last piece of the equation, which is, why do you do what you do? So I like to think about the bragging part as revealing a side of your personality that makes you different, that makes you unique, and that makes you someone that I want to get to know. That if I'm your classmate, that I would want to be your friend. That if I'm the principal of the school, I would feel like you're going to bring glory to my institution, right? So in my case, right, why did I do what I did? Because I wanted to contribute back to my community. What made me unique? Well, what made me unique was, quite frankly, I was poor. And I was poor, and I went from, being in a really tough situation to turning it around to making sort of a bad situation better. So when I think about bragging, I think about it as finding one thing that makes you different from someone else and finding an example of something that you've done that convinces me that that you have something that can back it up. Does that make sense? I knew I threw a lot at you. Did I confuse you, Crystal? Is that silence an indication that I confused you?
No, I understand.
And if you all want to, get in touch, I'm happy to answer your questions, afterwards. And I want you all to just have this link here. I'm going to copy and paste it into the form here, into the chat. I created a little survey, but it also, if you fill this out, I'll send you an email and you can email me, and I can answer any of your questions after the session. So for those of you who don't have your chat screen up, click on that, pull up your chat window, click on that link, fill in this form, and I'll email you with my personal email, and I can answer any questions you have after this. All right. I guess very last question is there anything that you all want me to cover next time that we didn't get a chance to cover this time? We've got one more session. I want to make it count.
Maybe like, I don't know, discussing like how to make a final decision.
Ooh, okay.
Like after all your after you get all your acceptance letters, like how would you decide?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Why don't we do this? Given that you're all going to have busy lives and you're going to be in a different spot in a month, how do you all feel about me doing the same kind of, dialogue with you guys? We'll kind of wing it. Is that all right?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
good.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Cool. All right. So I'm gonna come with an open mind next time, and I'm gonna address all your questions in real time. We'll do this like a game show. All right. Well, I've taken up a lot of your time. I'll drop. I know that Gabriel, Kyla, and Crystal need to stay after to talk. But to the rest of you, have a good night. Take care. Fill out the survey, and we'll be in touch.
You too.
Take care, everyone.
We'll send it
Thank
out
you.
via
Have a good day.
Thank you.
See you later.